r/AskWomen. Alone at 6405 says, what is the pay gap between you and your SO? How do you personally and together handle it? Are you on a common account or pay everything separately, splitted? If your SO earns much more, is that a problem for them? Brock and Kelsey Wolf says, my partner and I work in the same profession. He is a step above me pay scale wise and makes about $120 more a month than I do. Core 624 says, I'm a Sam, so 5-figure difference. Been together 10 years, and whenever I want something he makes sure I know I can get it, because I always feel guilty, even though we are not short on money. Ali 8856 says, I make 4x or so her salary. We got caught says, I make $164k plus bonuses. He makes $55k. Shori 93 says, she makes about 30k more than I do a year. Rawcall says, oh man. Ours is a big gap. My husband makes 200k, I work part-time and make maybe 17k. I also homeschool our kids. We have dated since 12, married at 19, and now married for almost 19 years. Our finances have always been in a joint account. I pretty much manage the finances minus his retirement accounts. No negotiation 23 says, I'm in school, so I'm in the negative. He, however, is in the positive for both of us lol. Adwala1 says, about 10k a year. Idenkeos says, my husband currently makes over 40k than I do. I'm applying and hoping to get a new job that will increase my income to an additional 20k. It's been very difficult to close the gap over the past few years. Stainedge Lasmermaid says, I make a couple dollars more an hour. But he quite literally makes twice as much than me a year due to what? Wow Fatsneet says, I think I make around 20k more than my boyfriend, but we are both making great money with all debts paid off. Ross's Fourth a Monster says, my husband's salary is 3 times higher than mine. All of the income is our money, it's direct deposited into a joint account. There is no my money or his money. All of our bills are paid from the joint account. There has always been a considerable wage difference between us. It is not an issue. Never has been. Triangles 13 says, I make about 20% more than him, but hopefully he works up the courage to ask for a raise this year, so we'll be closer. All our money is together in the same accounts, except what he makes on the side from sports betting. That's his extra / whatever money. Whenever I get a raise I take a portion of the extra every month to do whatever I want with. We keep a shared spreadsheet with all our expenses and account balances and keep my extra aside there. He loves that I make more money than him and would love it if he could be a sad haha. Rajessa says, all of our money goes into joint accounts. We both have access to all the money and spend at our discretion. All our bills are paid out of the joint checking account. We discuss large purchases of course. But it all goes into one pot and it's no problem for us. It makes everything so much easier. I make about 20k more a year than my husband, so not really that big of a gap. Blue 3 Flaming 0 says, I 37 female and my spouse 41 male make almost the same thing, but I make $1-2k more than he does. We split costs pretty evenly, but I cover extra things at my discretion because I have more wiggle room in my personal budget. I would love if I made enough money that he could stay home with the kids and work on creative endeavors. He covered us for years when we first started having kids and I went back to work because we needed to be dual income. I would return the offer in a heartbeat. SR4F says, right now, I make about 4.5x what he makes. Reasons for that is we moved to another country for my career and his degree didn't export well, so he's working part-time entry level while we live abroad. Once we go back home next year, if he picks up his old job, I'll likely still make more than him, but not so drastically so. Maybe 30-50% more. Long term, though, I have a higher earning potential than he does. Husband has a bachelor's in health and safety. I have a PhD in a STEM field. Our finances are an absolute mess of different accounts spread between 2 countries. Some accounts I have access to, some he has access to, one joint, one officially in my name only, but he carries the card because he's the one managing household stuff. It's a happy cluster, frick, but it works. We'll put some order there once we get back to our home country. Coffin Cultural says, RN we both make minimum wage, but I work full time and he does part time in school. Topper Weasel says, I make about 100 grand more than my husband, and he thinks it's awesome. We go on grandiose vacations off my income. He loves his job, so it's all good. He's a data analyst, and I'm in sales. We've always had a shared account for everything ever since our first vacation, when we were dating after a few months. We don't really spend money apart from each other. Every once in a while, one of us wants something. I always so go for it, and he's never said no to me when I've asked. Individual Cree Zero says, I now officially make zero because I'm going to be a Sam, but before I quit working I made around $50k and he's now making $110k. Wataru 2001 says, it used to be over 60k. But when I switched jobs, BC of the pandemic, we are actually really close now. Al Kitty says, I make 60% more than my partner who has a well-paying job himself. We share finances with a shared account. My job is high stress, high pressure, and he makes sure I eat dinner and reminds me it's just a job. Engineering 379.99 says, we both earn a similar 6-figure salary. We keep separate finances and split things 50/50 as we are within a couple grand of each other. I just made ownership in my company, so I'm set to out-earn him soon, and we will adjust the split accordingly by equitable percentages. Neither of us wanted to have to constantly discuss the finances, like you do when you keep joint accounts, so it made sense to just continue with separate finances. Miss Linden says, I earn double what my husband does. Everything goes into one account. I've always been the higher earner. Alice Tokes says, Mayo he makes $3 more per hour than me. Gotham85 says, we earn about the same, but I work part-time. I don't feel like we fit this category though as blue-collar and service workers, respectively. I Lick You Any Lot says, he was making about 30-50% more than me until this year. I think if I don't catch up to him this year, I will next year. From the start of our marriage, we've put everything in a joint account and budgeted out. Who makes more has never came up. r/AskWomen all the time says, what's something an ex has told you about yourself that you rejected at the time, only to later realize was true? Nana Karas at 805 says, I love you, but you're too well put together. I resent you for having all the qualities you have I wish I had in myself. I hate the feeling of looking at you and knowing that your life is much easier than mine, and your life will turn out to be much better than mine. I love you, and I always will, but I just have so much resentment towards you. I also got told this a lot while dating in different words. I actually reconnected with this ex like a decade later, and he still felt the same. And if anything, he was still mad at me. I reached all my goals, and I was happy. And he was still dreaming about all the qualities he wanted, while doing nothing to get them. And thinking about it, it's true. But it helped me weed out tons of guys that wanted to be someone's savior. I don't need saving. I was looking for a relationship with a partner that saw me as an equal and who was my equal, not a guy who wanted a relationship where he was the parent and I was a damsel in distress who needed saving. Down the Grappavine says, I didn't actually know how to communicate my feelings. That was 18 years ago and I'm still working on it. Tinisclasis says, both of my exes said IL was ugly. They were right. Enchiridian5 says, you're doing too many sweet things for me. He said it like it was a bad thing, and at the time I didn't get how it could be. Now I do. I was trying way too hard to show him I was worthy of his love. I should have focused more on my wants and needs, not just his. Egafredo says, I don't remember the exact phrasing, but it was something like it feels like you put me on a pedestal and want me to be superior to you. Complete Occasional 408 says, you can't spend the rest of your life pushing people away when they start to get close. I was like WTF, I don't do that. Oh. Krelix says, I know once you've made your mind up, you're not going to change it on my ending the relationship. At the time it threw me off, but it's since helped me realize that I needed to get better at communicating. Radioactive Muffin Top says, your feet are misshapen. I thought he was just joking with me. I laughed and said, what are you talking about? My feet are fine. But then he showed me his feet next to mine. I said, maybe you're the one with messed up feet. So he called his sister in, and we put our feet side by side. Turns out bunions aren't the default. Nearly everyone in my family has them, so I thought that's just how feet were. Sil3R Light says, you never ask for help, so I don't know how to help you. Well, it's felt like every time I've asked for help it appears to be an inconvenience to others. So I've become accustomed to helping myself, but that doesn't prevent anyone from simply asking. Big Mouth Bad Karma says, you always expect disappointment from me. After a third ex told me that I went on to buy a saddle because I'm a frick-ing horse. Fivani Trentle says, you'll put up with anything. No one respects a doormat. He found it really inconvenient later when I stopped being one. Rala Player Midnova says, you love everybody. He said this snidely after I told him I loved him for the first time. It was definitely true at the time. I was so desperate to be loved that I gave my heart to anyone I dated for more than a week. No wonder I was constantly getting hurt. I was setting myself up for it left, right, and center. Greeteschow 111 says, not an ex, but my current partner during the earlier stages of our relationship. You're finding ways to leave a perfectly fine relationship. Turns out I have abandonment issues/issues of not feeling worthy of love and would find ways to escape, so I won't be hurt first. Working with my therapist through this. r/AskWomen. Little Yogurt 5735 says, women, at what point in your relationship did you know you were ready for marriage? Grishi Angata says, I'd never even thought about marriage until my now husband said he was wanting to find a wife when I asked what his plans were on our first date, so I was like, oh crap. I guess I'd better make up my mind before I get into deep here. But over the next 3 months, I came to realize what incredible man he was. He was so thoughtful, considerate, and helpful, and I told him that he was such a breath of fresh air in my life. 3 months in, he gave me a friendship ring for my birthday, and I found myself quite heartbroken when the proposal didn't come with it. I was standing there waiting for it eagerly. After that, I just knew. I kept pestering him to marry me, and he did 3 months after that. Archinterest says, when I saw him grow and become a safe person for me finally. Wikitrash says, I was ready second year, still. Dating on year 12th. Lol. A Bear Grove says. After living together for 7 years, but we also moved in together within a month or so after the start. Melly72 says. Growing up I didn't want to be married because I didn't see happily married couples. Even the ones that had good marriages, I didn't see that fun side of love. They could have had it, and I just didn't see that side of their lives, which is likely the case. But when my husband and I had been dating for 7 years, I just looked over at him in bed and told him I think the next step for us is getting married, and he told me to help him pick a ring, and he'd plan a proposal sometime that year. I don't know what changed my mind, but it just felt right. My Pet Maniac says. Honestly, far before I was actually ready for marriage. It worked out okay, but it could have ended badly. Strongroll 5639 says. When he asked me. We'd been together 7 years, but we weren't fussed about getting married. He proposed and I was over the moon with joy. I then realized how much I wanted to. Greeteschow 111 says. 1 month after we met, well to caveat we were seeing each other daily. Bigger Hungus says. I feel emotionally and mentally ready, but we don't live together, and I possibly burned him out with my mental issues, and working through that. It's made us stronger, I think. My anxiety takes over. I feel ready, I know I'm not ready, and I fear losing the one greatest thing in my life. I feel as if a lot of people can relate to this as well. A Shenskiller says. Never, but for legal bullshit we got married about 3.5 years ago. I don't agree with the idea of marriage, but it became a legal requirement for other stuff, so we did the paperwork. Marriage just means your relationship is registered with the government. Nefarious Mango says. Well, I needed health insurance, his job offered good coverage for spouses, and we'd already been loving together a few years. I see Flight 7560 says. About 6 months after we met. He is the kindest, most caring, sexy man I've ever met. Took a long time, but I finally found him. Immigration Yoronoi2 says. Approximately 1 month after we met, and was definitely convinced 4 months after. Ladalamondrop 209 says. We were at a friend's birthday party or something, and we were just talking. A friend went around asking random questions and everybody went around the table answering. And he asked how I would describe love. I said something along the lines of it being a normal but perfect day. Where the sun is shining, but it's not too hot, there's a nice breeze and you hear the rustling of leaves. And you feel completely harmonized with nature and the world. There's nothing particularly special about it, but it's just perfectly comfortable. Just ultimate comfort. I think my BF at the time, now husband, fell in love with me all over again and just blurted out. Thanks, and hugged me. I could see his eyes sparkling. He thought I was describing how he made me feel lol. Which wasn't exactly true, I was just describing the image of love conceptually. The friend then asked the sofa his answer, and he said it's exactly the same as mine and no. One cold said it better. I didn't expect my so to resonate with it tbh. Nor really get it. All the other people, who were either single or still in the early-ish phase of dating, said something about roller coasters, excitement, being the only people in a crowded dance floor, made to feel most important, etc. So I know my answer likely didn't, and maybe isn't how many/most people would describe or feel love. And seeing how genuinely and sincerely my so understood and agreed that is love, or the love to aspire to, I knew we'd both know this shared vision is what we want and keep on track for. And that he understood the ideal and best thing about love is not about the excitement, drama, heart skipping a beat stuff, it's the plain everyday things, and how wonderful that is. Too long, didn't read, when I realized he understood and shared my image/definition of love. Which indicated to me he knew what to work for and is required in a. Rajoy Prince says. For me, it was when my partner was more my family than my original biological family. That was pretty clear transition for me and made me realize that I was ready for marriage. Destrius says, well, marriage for us was just the legal bit. We'd been together for 11 years before we got married. We knew we wanted to get married before having children, so that we had all the protections in place should the worst happen. We knew we wanted to have children because we had other things in place: stable careers, good income, a house, support network, etc. This is going to sound so boring, but we agreed to get married when we were sitting down doing our annual budgeting/life plan spreadsheet LMAO. Southern Grace 38133 says, after I moved in with him, about 4 or 5 months later, I started noticing him do small things like help me fold laundry, or when I had to study for an exam he'd make dinner, or he'd vacuum when I wasn't feeling well. So many of my friends had partners who just expected them to do it because they were women. But he openly asked to split chores because he felt that we should share the duties. That was when I first started thinking about I was ready to marry him because he looked at me as an equal, and you can't always find a guy like that. r/AskWomen. Sonoma Chris says, when a coworker goes on maternity leave, what do you say? Enjoy your time off? Congratulations? Nevertrally says, if I felt like I needed to say something and we weren't close enough that I would be seeing her while she's out of the office, I'd probably just go with something like, see you when you return, best wishes to you and your family. Not this again 234 says, I wouldn't say enjoy your time off, because most would probably take it in the spirit intended, but I think some might resent the implication that they are on vacation when they know it's going to be a lot of hard work, exhaustion and painful recovery. I know you don't mean anything offensive at all by it, but I still remember the look I got from my sister when I told her I'd bring her some books to read during her time off. It depends on how well you know the person, but I'd say something like, we'll be thinking of you and wishing you well. C Red Scallops says, enjoy your time with your baby. Green Mountain 85 says, I've been on 3 maternity leaves and that was basically what people told me every time: enjoy your new baby, good luck, congratulations, etc. At Excellent 7055 says, enjoy your time off, probably won't go over well, best wishes to you and your family, or something like that, or say nothing. Axela says, definitely do not say enjoy your time off. It's not a really time off. You might not have to go to work, but you could have a very traumatic birth, be healing from a C-section. You definitely are getting less than 4 hours of sleep a day with a newborn. It's not like they are on vacation. Lilape says, you lucky mofo. Erazy says, Godspeed. Mandarific says, have a nice baby. CI78 says, enjoy your time with the baby, it's precious, and take care of yourself. Ifyalsa Kaylee says, you say, better you than me, ha 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 ha. K1 Mickey II says, best wishes. Chickenish Out says, enjoy your time off is the worst thing to say. Thewald Champ 93 says, good luck. Tootsnick says, I say, happy baby and best of luck. I feel like it covers all the bases. Vespertinism says, good luck, keep us updated. No Communication 1689 says, I always wish them a small head and narrow shoulders. Agentoff Mephila says, I would say good luck. KN0CK0 Ut says, my go-to for almost any situation is best of luck. It's really vague yet specific. Kissit 777 says, definitely not the time off comment. Hibejabez says, I always say best wishes and hope everything goes smoothly. Too much jubilation seems a bit jinxy, since it's a major medical event about to go down fraught with danger. Red Panda Enthusiast says, best wishes to you and your new family, can't wait to meet you and the baby soon, something like this. Submissive Missy says, I'm on maternity leave at the minute, and before I left everyone was saying time will fly by and you'll be back before you know it. Ashenskula says, hope you have a fast recovery. Pair 11 says, nothing. I say nothing. Thanariel Nabadi says, I'd probably wish her luck and say something like enjoy your time with your baby. Hypothetical Zombie says, I hope everything comes out okay. Domino Master of Science says, good luck. Drivian Acid says, I always say, I hope you have an easy and uneventful labor and delivery and a quick recovery. Enjoy your time with your family. Sunny Pancakes 1998 says, if I'm close with the person, I'll just let them know to call or text me if they need anything. Otherwise, I wish them the most uneventful birth ever. Elila Fell says, I think something along the lines of wishing you all the best and that you get to spend some beautiful time bonding with baby, that everything goes to plan and can't wait to see you and baby when you're ready to pop in again. And if I'm being honest, probably then mumbling in my head about why can't that be me yet and how much longer do I need to wait. Perry 147 says, if she is a friend. Baby time, don't even think about this place, go and take the time you need. Hope everything goes smooth. Best of health to the both of you. Lost Ladder says, she's not going on vacation, never ever say enjoy your time off. Vicarious Glutton says, I hope everything goes well for you. Lachivaconasaminto says, never enjoy your time off. Glinda North says, I hope everything goes well. Take care. Guest 2424 says, enjoy your time with your family is better than enjoy your time off. They are taking time to prioritize family, but they will certainly not be well rested with a baby crying every few hours for weeks on end. Deleted says, please never tell a person going on maternity leave to enjoy their time off. r/AskWomen. Tender Blossom 79 says, how do you deal with a friend who never asks you how you are or what's going on in your life? Flavortown Abbey says, we have a pair of college friends who are now married to one another who are like this. They're great company and very generous. But if they were put on some kind of new what game show where the questions were about their friends, they would not be able to win a single round. Our friend in the same circle recently told me that he conducted a test to see whether they listened at all. He just blurted out more and more outlandish life updates while talking to them. Oh, you guys just redid your floors? That's crazy because my floor actually gave out last month and I collapsed down into the apartment below mine. He said they both had barely any reaction beyond the passive "oh wow that's crazy" before immediately steering the conversation back to themselves. So, they're hopeless. But they always let us stay overnight, cook for us, and take us out to fun evenings when we visit them in California. And I'm sure they would step up and help if any of us were in need. They just don't know anything about our lives that's happened in the past 10 years lol. Eretera 7 says, they drift away and I get more time with closer friends. Greeteschow 111 says, I'm that friend hahaha. My friends too lol, but the thing is in my culture, we don't really bother. We are not codependent on others either. We know we care about each other, busy with our own lives, we see each other's socials, but that's about it. Dr. Fiank says, we just fall out eventually. Afluaj says, sounds like my new best friend. Jekramosp says, I had a friend like that for 2 years, and 2 days after my birthday that she, again, forgot to send me birthday wishes, while she spent all day on Instagram posting selfies and sharing memes. I decided to cut her off permanently, blocked her everywhere, and haven't looked back ever since. I'll not continue being the only one reaching out, sending holiday good wishes, birthday messages, getting her souvenirs when I travel, etc. If a friend isn't willing to meet you in the middle, you choose yourself, gather your self-respect and dignity and walk away. Over 8 billion people in the world. You deserve better. Judge Quantum says, the his is what I call a surface friend. You don't go out of your way to see them, and when you do see them, it's just small talk. Then when you're done, you just move on until the next encounter. You do it because you have mutual friends who are real friends and you don't want to cause issues for them by making this a thing. JJ Moss says, I'm that friend. My friends always come to me when they need anything. I'm always there, but I don't text them every week and ask them how they are. We've established a healthy dynamic. Not texting does not mean the friendship is over. If you don't feel like you can depend on your friend because of how little you'll speak, then I would rethink your connections with those people. I don't get sad when my friends don't text me because I understand they have lives of their own, and so do I. I'm grateful for her, my closest one, and know I can count on her anytime, but I can deal with my own thoughts and my own life, so I don't get hurt when she doesn't stop everything and check up on me for no reason, because frankly I won't do the same. We are big girls and we love each other. We just go straight for it if we want to talk, no beating around the bush or counting who texts first. AskWomen says, I just don't talk at it. Outrageous Pilot 7826 says, when I realize it happens, I create distance. If I lose them, I understand it's the best thing for me. My best friend for many years suddenly stopped reaching out first, and I realized I was the only one making effort. I decided to wait for her to reach out first once, and it's been 2 years. Bye. Not doing that says, depends on the friend. Old friend, I would ask WTF was up, and can we work on this? New friend, I would ask WTF was up and not invest my energy into them if they didn't give me a good answer. Gadjolpmo says, it doesn't bother me. I'm happy with friends that don't feel the need to constantly check in like that. If I feel like telling them about what is going on, I do. I usually only ask if I can tell something is bothering them. Most people put their stuff on social media, so if I see something, I comment on it. Thaluja Original says, if we are close enough, I'd tell my friend just like it is. If he's my new buddy, I'd probably just listen to him and later try to move the focus on me. If it happens often, I'd consider not getting close with such people. South Opportunity 52 says, I'm not friends with PPL like that. It's a relationship. I'm not here for you just to trauma dump on. Analx says, I don't really feel bothered when people don't ask how I am, and I tell people how I feel if I want them to know. As such, I basically treat everyone the same. I'll take you at face value. If you need to tell me something, then tell me. If you want me to know something, then tell me. XPGX says, I just stopped sharing anything about my life. And she hasn't asked. At this point, I'm keeping my replies short and boring to see when she'll notice. So our convos now goes something like, I got promoted, good job, I have a BF, nice, we broke up, totally vapid convos that go nowhere, and she hasn't asked for more. It's still strange and fascinating to me, so I'm not offended as much as I'm just curious to see how this unfolds eventually. Like, will she ever find out that I switched careers? Will this be my longest friendship with absolutely zero substance? Stubborn Taurus 26 says, I either intentionally work in my life into conversation, intentionally redirect. Or I start to distance from them. If I'm constantly taking on the burden of support for their life, but they are unwilling to do the same for me, it's not a good friendship. r/AskWomen. Garline says, how would you feel about someone cancelling plans to go on dates with you? Would it make you feel uncomfortable or strange? Would it reassure you about the seriousness of the person you're dating? Thank you. Drunk Enknita says, it'd be weird if they were specifically telling me this and expecting me to be grateful about it. It's just a date, it's not that deep. Don't make it weird. Novertrally says, depends on the context. If they are cancelling other plans in order to spend more time with me, I would feel like they valued our time together more than the other plans they had made. As to whether that's a good thing or a bad thing depends on the people involved and the ongoing situation. Skipping out on a traditional weekly dinner with a big group of friends once or twice a month to go out with me feels a lot different than cancelling plans to visit for a beloved dying relative's birthday to go out to dinner with me instead. Both situations would be prioritizing time with me over time with others, but one of them would be more likely to make me feel uncomfortable about that person's choice priorities and think we may be incompatible. The Sword Maiden says, depends on what was cancelled. His mother's birthday? I'm uncomfortable and also now uninterested. His weekly game night with the boys? That's sweet, shows flexibility and balance. It's also an opener to learn more about how he spends his free time and how long they've been doing it. What shows more seriousness is being open about how his life is scheduled and what he considers important. Miss Nikitadavan says, if it's like a weekly hangout with friends, something very informal, it would be neutral to it. If he made plans to go the movies or out to dinner or dinner with a specific friend/relative, I would consider him rude. Much rather get a can't do that day due to prior commitment, cause that's what it is, and just cancelling is flaky and rude. Alendon04 says, I think it is a very romantic detail that few men do anymore. Sugar Rush 05 says, depends on the reason. If there is one, sure, I can be understanding. If there is no reason or it's bad, good for me too, as I won't be planning another date with them. Rod and Drippings says, if it's a first or second date, I would be grateful for them letting me know early who they are. This is, obviously, dependent on circumstances. Muted Alive 9065 says, as others have mentioned, it depends on the situation and frequency. Now if he invites me to those plans, now that is green flag for the seriousness and shows he genuinely wants to include me in his life. Don't cancel your plans, invite me. Kraken in Heels says, I think it makes them seem a bit flaky. They agreed to do something and then cancelled when something more interesting came along. Even if that something more interesting is me, I see honoring one's prior commitments as a good sign of character that they can be relied on to do whatever they say they will do. Dialxicus Frick says, depending on what they cancelled, I would either feel uncomfortable or indifferent about it. Larsilina says, he can do what he likes, but he shouldn't expect the same from me. Lebby Disaster says, I have a hard rule that I won't cancel on friends for a date. The date hasn't been scheduled yet, but plans with friends have. Cancelling on the friends implies that they're a backup plan or just a second choice that I don't value. Chompra says, in a way, I'd feel flattered, but it depends on what they have going on. If it's something important, I'd rather they focus on that, as we can always go on many dates another time. Would really appreciate the honesty and effort to reschedule/making up of our cancelled date though, because that would show me you're still interested in spending time with me, but sometimes life stuff just happens. I'd understand. Beaker says, depends on the plans and why they tell me about it. Did I ask them to meet and they tell me they'd love to, they just have to cancel plans? Kinda cute. But TBH, I'd most likely ask why I'm not welcome in these plans. Queen Liquor 420 says, I don't expect anyone to put me that high on their priorities to cancel their plans. If you are busy that day, then you should just find another day that works better. I'm not more important than your lunch with your family or a beer with your friends. Tay 10133 says, green flag if it's someone I had been seeing for a while. Most recently, I had a guy fly back into town specifically just so he could take me out for Valentine's Day. Midnight Fire Huntress says, depends on the reason. If you are cancelling because of something personal like health/family, I understand. If you are cancelling because of any other reason, then you're not getting a second chance. P. Daysaf Life says, it would make me feel like they are easily willing to skip plans if something more interesting comes along, and that they might do that to me in the future too. Or that they value me, a person they don't know that well yet, more than the people you have known for years, and that would make me uncomfortable. Or wonder if he would expect me to do Rust. In general, it wouldn't be a positive to me. But context matters a lot. Like, was it in fact impossible to find a suitable date for weeks? Or could you have scheduled me another day easily, or just not see each other for a week? And what was the thing you cancelled? Eretera7 says, I prefer a date to honor their prior commitments than cancel to be with me. I think it's the decent thing to do because it shows commitment and respect for others, which are important in a potential partner. These are qualities I noticed early on when dating my spouse, and I appreciate that about him. Punk Rock Chick says, so would cancel plans with others when we were casual, so he could see me when I was available or coming into town unexpectedly. I appreciated it. I'm sure the others didn't though. P. Whisper 18 says, personally, I would hate this because I would feel like they would expect me to do the same in the future. Personally, I would never do this because I think it's rude AF. In short, it would be a red flag for me. According Exam 4737 says, depends. If they are telling me about it to guilt trip me into doing something, or so I will give them a pat on the head for being such a good person, then it's more weird than anything, and I'd consider that a red flag. Other than that, I'd feel flattered, but if possible, I'd make adjustments too so they won't have to resort to that. Dear Michael Logistical says, it depends what the plans were. Like, don't skip your loved one's wedding or funeral just to go on an ordinary date with me, and don't regularly flake on your friends if you made special plans with them. If you occasionally cancel casual/low stakes plans, that's okay. But I don't want all your friends to resent me because you're always canceling on them to spend time with me. r/AskWomen. Husiadadiem says, what things does your significant other do that make you blush? Elegant Analyst 4976 says, he does this intense stare, smolder, into my soul, and then gives a little wink. His eyes go soft, and a sexy/cute side grin. Bohabud says, he treats me like a queen. He's very observant. For instance, I hate opening water bottle caps, and he noticed that. Now every time we get water bottles, he always opens it for me. Little things matter. Mamakit92 says, a lot of the things he does make me blush and giggle. When he comes up behind me while I'm cooking or washing dishes and wraps his arms around me while kissing my neck and shoulder. Instantly blushing and giggling, especially if we are not alone. When he texts me naughty things while he's at work. Same giggling blushing reaction. Even just cuddling on the couch together and having him kiss the top of my head. There isn't a single form of affection that he gives me that doesn't make me smile, giggle, or blush. Witty Surround 6541 says, when he gives me Eskimo kisses and caresses my cheek. Cheekigeral 97 says, He loves me. The Sunshine City says. Foot pets and tucking me into bed. F1 Snakes says. Turns the heat up a few degrees higher without giving me notice. It fires me up a bit. Pitch at any time says. He always calls me Titsy, and it makes me blush sometimes lol. Lost Statement 6863 says. The way he always wants to hold my hands. It's like he has to hold them at all times, and as soon as possible. Or when he puts his hand on my back I just melt. Cathian 38 says. When we are out somewhere together, standing in line somewhere or out for dinner. We are just hanging out, and then when I look over at him, he's already staring at me with a smile on his face. It just makes me so happy. 3. JB's 4117 says. He constantly always asks our sons in front of me, did you tell mommy how pretty she looks today? Struck Biffire says. Kisses my feet and tells me I'm a goddess. Podfed Potato says. I'll catch him just watching me. Watching me read, watch TV, feed the cats. I can't help but always ask what? And he always responds with I just love watching you, you're beautiful, I melt every time. Mocha Siblings says. He will look at me, smile shyly and tell me I'm pretty or the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. He does this multiple times a day. It always makes me feel a little weak. He always makes eye contact with me after making a joke in a crowded room to see if he has made me laugh as well. What an accomplishment that still is to him. When he tells me he talks about me with his coworkers. When he brags about me. When we are out in public holding hands and he twirls me around. C Red Scallops says. Pretty much nothing makes me blush anymore. I guess that's one benefit of morphing into an old wise swamp witch. Fox 4 Artie says. Hold my hand when we are out in public. Pixie Chris says. He compliments me. Living Mistake 8773 says. Intense eye contact whenever. Sunny Sailor 96 says. We were playing cards the other day, and he made intense eye contact and said yeah I know exactly what's in your hand now, and then he said also, it's just an excuse to look into your eyes more. It was so silly, and made me laugh, but also made me absolutely melt. Danivel says. Brags about my art. Ashes the Vampire says. Just anything really. He points out my insecurities, but in a positive way. He will tell me that he loves my stomach, or if I show up with no makeup he will tell me I look beautiful. Brunetta Skeleton says. When he looks at me and tells me I'm so pretty. Down the Grappavine says. I'm silly and have zero shame in making a fool of myself, and he's super shy, so he sometimes watches me acting silly in the way he looks at me. Gosh, I'm melting just thinking about it now. He just smiles and it's the look of love, if I ever saw one. I love that man. Bittersweet 69 says. She tucks my hair behind my ear and tells me that she loves to see my face. I melt to a helpless puddle every single time. Shirley Mth says. My late husband would catch my eye across a room, make full eye contact, while he licked his lips. I knew what that meant. Made me turn beet red every time. Fricker did it the last time in a bed in a nursing home, while the nurse was changing a dressing. I blushed then laughed. That old frick made me laugh on his last day too with something like that. He liked to make me blush in public. Funkitanuki 18 says. When we would go out with all his friends / coworkers to bars and he would be talking about the military or electrical engineering or whatever and would always put his hand on my knee or back and glance over at me and smile or lean down and explain anything in the conversation I wasn't familiar with. Just seeing him be so charismatic and handsome, but keeping a focus on me the whole time. I'd melt when he'd hold my hand and tell me I look pretty. Elippa says. So many things. Here's one. We were surrounded by other people, and as everyone was talking, he looked across at me, gave me really intense eye contact, and then a little smile. OMG. Melt. r/AskWomen. Silicantalup5891 says, what are some jobs you pursued after leaving a high stress job, and why? Canchas3r43 says, I went from working at an oil company where it was common for people to scream at each other and our manager to berate us multiple times a day, to being a horseback trail guide at one of the local tourist spots. Surprisingly, the tips were usually better than I got paid at the oil company during the busy season, but damn, the slow season sucked. But the trails were amazing, and I got to interact with all kinds of people from all over the world in a light-hearted manner. And there were horses. So many beautiful horses with sweet souls. It cured my anxiety about work and about myself and allowed me to just appreciate life. I have since gone back to the same type of work that I was doing before at the oil company, but the company is better and the culture is awesome. Green Chassekrisis says, I used to conduct intakes for new patients at a psychiatric outpatient clinic while working as a full-time graduate student. The pay was shit, the management was toxic, and the work environment was seriously depressing. I was at the computer all day, in back-to-back appointments, and spending hours on documentation. Now, I teach yoga to pre-K 5th grades and facilitate virtual group therapy. The better part is it's been a large step up in pay, but way less stress on me. And I get to spend more time being at home with my dog. Sincerely Sasquatch says, I had a very micromanaged, stressful job as a patient care advocate. When it was contributing to suicidal thoughts, I left and worked part-time in a mindless job for a small answering service company. SP1D3RB0T says, I was an industrial maintenance tech, fixing big kick-ass machines and robots and stuff in factories. No one trained any of their techs for nothing, and I was left alone to deal with an ammonia-cooled refrigeration system from 1978 that was smack dab in the middle of a neighborhood, across the way from a nursing home. With zero training, no respirator in case of emergencies, nothing. I quit the factories and started laying flooring with my husband. I get fantastic training, which I never got in the factories. Decent pay, great work/life balance, since we set our own schedule. Zero benefits and have to be smart about withholding your own taxes, but the freedom is so worth it. Lorelei says, I'm fairly senior in my field, so naturally moved into management. I tried it a few times at different companies and it's just not for me as an introvert who finds company politics discouraging, especially when it means competing with aggressive men for resources for my team. The extra money was great, but I've since returned to a role as an individual contributor, and I'm happy to let someone else deal with the stress of management. I'm still a leader in any role I take on, just without the management title and responsibilities. Much respect to the women who can cope with the big personalities among executives. Sugasa de Sofa says, the exact same job, but for older kids at a better building. I was working prec as an IA in my very rough neighborhood. Prec cries a lot, has massive feelings, and when on top of that you're managing serious trauma and absent neglectful parents, it's all over. Plus the principal sucked so bad it's crazy and everyone, except 2 people left. Anyway, I moved to my mom's school, also in a rough neighborhood, but at least where I myself went to school, so I could identify more with the struggles and students and work with K. It's still stressful, but admin is supportive, and I love my job most days. Guzman G says, I was a contractor on a military installation leasing homes for military families. The spouses, I swear, would wake up and begin dialing my office number to check up on a home that they know will not be available. They'd daily make it a point to complain That the home assigned to them didn't have the number they wanted their address to end in, that they wanted their front door to face open to the ocean, it wasn't the color they wanted, why can't they look inside the house, even though a family is currently living there, etc. I gained about 35 pounds BC. I was just so depressed and miserable. I now am an advisor working for federal government, which is solo stress, job security with great pay and benefits. Lost 60 plus pounds and happy every morning I go to work. Nudge Megan says, I was a Sam for 20 years, 4 kids. I went to college and did a bachelor and master's in 4 years. I also was lead researcher most those years. Now I work in recruitment and marketing, while also volunteering and learning a language on the side. Everyone is stressed at work and it's nothing compared to being a full-time parent. Sipinanthesizerp says, window cleaning. I got claustrophobic in an office. Responsible7412 says, I was logistics for mass transit and dispatch for the sheriff. After 2 years I said, frick that, and picked up an easy good paying desk jockey job. Vividad7541 says, I was a bedside nurse in a stressful unit with management that doesn't care about us. People burn out easily. I decided to become a travel nurse in a rural area and feel much better. Less stress, more pay. I take vacation whenever I want. Resident Trouble 8966 says, K-12 education for 12 years. Moved into higher ed and it's way slower moving. Low thread count sheets says, state government work is a huge breath of fresh air. It can be monotonous, but you can make a livable wage and get great benefits. I always was super stressed out by work. Now I work from home, log out, and never think about work until I'm back in the office, online. My free time is my own. I can make a sandwich or coffee when I want. It's kind of a dream job wise, if I'm being honest. Ross's fourth a monster says, I was running the laundry department in a 75-bed nursing home with only one other employee working in the laundry room. That job was messing with my sanity. It caused me to have serious anger issues, to the point where my daughter was afraid to speak to me when I got home from work because I was always in such a hostile mood. 3 years ago, I applied for a job as an optician's assistant. This is a job that I was completely unqualified for. I had no knowledge whatsoever about the optical business. I seriously applied for the job because I would have done anything to get out of that nursing home while I still had some sanity left. Fortunately for me, the doctor that owns the business gave me a chance. I did a 6-month paid apprenticeship, worked for 1 year as the optical manager's assistant, and have been a dispensing optician for 1.5 years now. Mekiaka says, I went from having a creative role in a service-based startup to a similar role in a gaming startup. Best switch ever. Playing games is part of my job now. It is still stressful, but nobody is yelling at me during Monday meetings. Rod and Drippings says, the one I currently do. I'm a teacher now, and I love it. I was an attorney before that, and I can't tell you how miserable I was. Sashimi Pink says, I'm doing advocacy work instead now. Projects are harder to come by, and the pay is very low, but I find fulfillment in the work that I do. Happiest Orangutan says, I went for a kind of junior position with way less responsibility, even though I have enough experience and relevant skills to be much higher up the chain. It was in the education sector, mostly administrative and supportive work, and the big decisions were not made by me, nor was the pressure on me. So in a higher position it would have been just as stressful. It was less about the job itself, and more about what position I was ready to take on. It was a really important step for my mental health. Even though I have high ambitions and a lot of potential, I just wanted to focus on things outside my job. r/AskWomen. Aubrey Dallas says, what is your favorite metal band? Sugar Rush 05 says, Locuna Coil, Epica, Nightwish, Within Temptation, Delaine. Basically I went through a European gothic metal phase when I was 13. Pink Fagos says, Sleep Token. Sunbobby43 says, Avenged Sevenfold, Of Mice and Men, Bring Me the Horizon basically stuck in the early 2010s. Son Sierra says, Megadeth, Scorpions, Blind Guardian, In Flames and Nightwish are my favorite bands in general. I love metal in all forms and kinds. Molly 2012 says, nothing more. Tajamiawa7 says, lately it's Memorist. Although, I think they might have broken up, sadly. Miss Ellis says, I'm afraid to say Five Finger Death Punch. Lil Dirtfoot says, I like Tungsten alright but generally I think a nice yellow gold is what I go for. She Love says, Ghost, Dark Throne, Mayhem, and Power Trip. Amos says, Death Clock. OK Car 7227 says, Bring Me the Horizon. Saw them last week. Awesome. Yup the Zone says, Otip should be on this list. IXE7311 says, Deftones, Ginger. Whiskey Quicksode says, Black Label Society. Also Pantera and Megadeth. Enova says, System of a Down. Bube6 says, Korn is my favorite band. Courtster24 says, High Command, Havoc, Exodus, Hellripper, One Man Band, Mind-blowing talent, Sacred Reich and been getting into more Death Angel lately. Catluddy 202,322 says, Morty from Undead Congregation lately. Nicky Smith 182 says, Merging Moon. Not David Blaine says, Scar Symmetry. Im Incognito Bizach S says, Lamb of God, Mishagat, Gojera. Jess 180,992 says, Iron Maiden. Spooktacular Swag says, Loathe. Meow Monkey says, Summoning, Woods of Desolation, Colin, Typo Negative, to name a few. KVQ 516 says, not exactly true metal but metal subgenres, metalcore, Motionless in White, Bad Omens, and Ice 9 Kills, Nu Metal, Con, Heavy Metal / Alternative Metal, Disturbed. Nobba Princess says, High Rise, Canet, Burning Witch, Boris, Psychedelic Speed Freaks, Earth, Power Trip, Black Sabbath. Non-Significanon says, Avatar. East Canary 538 says, Avatar. Demonic Joel Cox says, Mark. X Hyper Ballad X says, Devil Driver, Lamb of God, Arch Enemy, Angela Gossow Era, Art of the Flesh. I am Dulpets 96 says, can't do a favorite, there are too many good options. White Zombie, Rob Zombie, Typo Negative, In This Moment, KMFDM, Radm. Sarah Deputy 502 says, Spirit Barks. Tragared Quilt says, Solosis. In Between 0 and 1 says, can't pick one so, Opeth Draconian, Dyrachary for the Sky, a Galoch, Alcest. Economic Waffle says, Epica, Sabaton, Anchor. Salt Huckleberry 7494 says, Piker and Metallica. Drunk Enknita says, Metallica. Parita Sophia says, Babimetal and Typo. Kagura 0609 says, I'm more of a metalcore girl, and will go with Beartooth and Architects. Long Story Short says, Chelsea Grin and Lorna Shaw have really been doing it for me lately. Pair 11 says, a day to remember. Witty Surround 6541 says, sleep token. Inthavaligeral says, Sabaton. Comprehensive Grand 87 says, rotting Christ. Rod and Drippings says, Slipknot. Punk Rock Chick says, typo, Danzig. Apprehensive Life 112 says, Danzig. Miawacha says, Judas Priest, Metallica, System of a Down, Avenged Sevenfold, and so many more. Wrestling Woman says, King Diamond. I was introduced to metal with King Diamond when I was 11. I'm almost 43 and he's still the best. Bittersweet 69 says, Dark Tranquility. Pixie Chris says, Electric Wizard. Vivian King says, Covenant, VNV Nation, Ramstein, and a few lesser known groups from China and Korea. An Accountant 4884 says, Slipknot. Raptor Sniper says, Children of Bodom. Unburita Porphyra says, Iron Maiden. Sad Sledgermain says, I'll give you several, Behemoth, Slipknot, Belphegor, Cannibal Corpse, Meshuggah, Dark Throne, Nervochaos, Vitriol. Clara Berzachinakud says, Death and Opeth. Kikikrom says, Lamb of God. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.